Alright, so if you've seen my last video, the Hobbit movie review, then you know that I said I wouldn't be making videos for a bit of a while. Well, I completely lied. So here we go. I decided to pull an all-nighter and make a few more vids before school starts. So this is the first one, and it's a guide to leopard gecko care. First, let's talk about housing. So, in my opinion, the minimum requirement for an adult leopard gecko is a 10-gallon long tank. Now be mindful, because terrariums do come in long and tall, so make sure you get the long one, because leopard geckos do not climb as much as most other gecko species. However, if you really want to maintain a more healthy gecko and more easily have a temperature gradient, then I would still recommend a 20-gallon tank like mine. Now, speaking of temperature, you're gonna need a thermometer. Now, you probably want two, one for the cold side and one for the hot side, but I only use one in the middle, and I kind of move it around to see the hot side and the cold side. I try to keep the hot side around 88 degrees Fahrenheit and the cold side around 77 degrees Fahrenheit, at least during the day. Now, another question that often comes up is, what should I use to regulate the temperature, heat lamp or heat mat? Now, personally, if you can manage the temperature with only a heat mat, there's no need for a lamp, because the lamps are actually really bright, first of all. However, usually I find that I need both a heat mat and a heat lamp to maintain the temperature on the hot side. Now let's talk about leopard gecko substrate. First off, whatever you do, don't use sand. Now I know some sands, like fine sands such as play sand, are safe, but it's just not worth the risk. Now personally, I use Repticarpet. However, this substrate does have a few drawbacks. First of all, it does harbor bacteria, like if there's poo on it, etc. And there's also the fact that leopard geckos can actually hook their fingers and their jaws on it, and I've seen that happen once so far. It's usually nothing severe, like Godzilla usually pulls it out, in a few seconds, but it is something important to know. Also, as you can see, once you get calcium dust on Repticarpet, it's really hard to get it off. Some other really popular substrates include non-laminated tile, as well as eco-earth, as well as paper towels. Now, I'll talk more about these in an upcoming substrate guide, but for now, all you need to know is that all four of these substrates work, but just don't use sand. You can use paper towels, tile, eco-earth, or Repticarpet. Now let's talk about hides. You're going to need 2 or 3 hides. One for the hot end, one for the cold end, and a moist hide. Now you can use the cold hide as a moist hide by putting wet paper towels in it. However, I prefer to have 2 separate hides. Now, there are some advantages to having a smooth hide like this one. One of them being that the leopard gecko can't crawl onto it, so when you remove it, it's completely safe to remove it quickly. However, because it doesn't have any nooks or crannies for leopard geckos to hide in, these hides are not as preferred as the alternative. My leopard gecko loves his rocky hide like this one, because it has all these little cracks for him to hide in. However, the problem with this is when you remove it, you need to be careful, as you might damage the gecko. Now, my moist hide, it was pretty simple for me to make. I made it on my own. What I did is I took a container already with a hole, a plastic container, I believe it used to have golf gloves in it, and I simply placed some paper towels inside. After that, all you need to do is moisten the paper towels once every couple of days, unless you see visible mold, etc. growing on the paper towels, in which case you must remove them and replace them. Now remember, you should try and place your hides in a visually appealing way. Now, unlike me, of course, because I have no skill at art, so this looks terrible, but try and do it in a visually appealing way. Now let's talk about feeding. So there are 2 main staples that you can easily find everywhere for leopard geckos to eat, and those are mealworms and crickets. Now, crickets are more nutritious, as well as the fact that you can gut load them, which makes them, better food. However, mealworms are much more convenient, because first of all, you can keep them in a bowl and they won't escape, and second of all, you can keep them in the fridge, and they'll just stay there dormant, and they'll live longer, and you don't even have to feed them. Of course, there are also dubia roaches, which are better than both. However, those, at least where I live, are really hard to find. So which one should I feed, crickets or mealworms? Well, I feed both, actually. When I'm really busy, I'll just drop in a few mealworms into the calcium powder. But, when I have more time, or when I want to make a video, I'll drop in some crickets and let them hunt and get some exercise. Now, for supplementation, which is necessary to ensure a healthy gecko, I use Repticalcium from my local pet store. It does have vitamin D3, which I've heard is bad. However, based on research, it doesn't seem to be that bad. I mean, what vitamin D3 essentially does is it helps them process it. And the theory is that if you have too much vitamin D3, what can happen is they have like oversaturation of calcium, and that can be unhealthy. However, I haven't found a report of anyone actually having a bad experience with the leopard gecko actually having an overdose of calcium. So I'll keep it in for now, and if there are problems down the line, I'll definitely switch it out. Now, as for handling your gecko, I've already made a pretty good guide on that, so you can check it out on my channel. But some basics are, don't grab the tail, and if it won't climb onto your hand like mine does sometimes, well, then you can use 2 fingers to scoop it up by putting them under its belly and just lifting. Now let's talk about some medical problems that are pretty common in leopard geckos. First off is impaction. Now, impaction is most common when leopard geckos are kept on sand. When they ingest too much sand, it can block their digestive tract and they'll be unable to digest anything properly. However, it can also happen if they eat something way too big. Now, if the impaction is really slight, it's only a little bit, you can help the leopard gecko by giving it a bath in warm water. However, if it's severe, it'll probably need a visit to the vet. Another common problem is metabolic bone disease. Now, this happens when leopard geckos don't get enough calcium. This can be avoided by making sure they constantly have a calcium supply, as well as making sure the calcium is phosphorus free. Metabolic bone disease is very serious, and it could easily prove fatal for your gecko, so make sure you visit the vet if your gecko has this disease, and make sure it has access to a ready supply of calcium, and make sure you dust your feeders in calcium as well to give it a boost during this time. Alright everyone, thanks for watching, and this has been my leopard gecko care guide. I hope you subscribe. Bye!